I'm starting it.
Okay.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and welcome to Geospatial Survey and Mapping webinar on career opportunities in Geospatial. My name is Manish Prasad and I am CEO and editor of Geospatial Survey and Mapping and will be the coordinator of this webinar. Geospatial Survey and Mapping has been regularly publishing key magazine covering geospatial survey technology and their applications. It is a leading source of information for topics related to geospatial survey tools and their usages. It publishes news, articles, interviews, podcasts, and tenders. Today we have Mr. Nikhil Kumar, Director Technical Marketing, South Region from Trimble Navigation. Nikhil Kumar has more than 2 decades of experience in sales and marketing management, including business development, strategic planning, market research and analysis, large account management, alliances and treaties, business consultations and negotiations, offer and channel management, prospective planning, financial budgeting and project projections, resource planning and utilization, team building and skill building. In his present role, Nikhil Kumar is responsible for market analysis, strategic business planning and positioning, sales enablement to grow business for different divisions and industries, identifying new opportunities for Trimble products and solutions in the region, and build new growth opportunities. Nikhil, in his 2 decades of geospatial industry, has been in different types of roles and profiles, managing sales operations, with business development teams, with pre-sales teams, technical support teams in domestic area in India and internationally in North America. Whether it is carrying out services for projects or creating a product-level solution for implementation. It is an opportunity to have Nikhil, who has seen so many roles in the geospatial industry, directly or indirectly. Thanks Nikhil, for coming over and sharing your time and experience with all of us. Participants are requested to put their questions in the question box. The questions will be taken during the webinar. We have this webinar. Okay. Sorry, we'll have this webinar in the form of question and answer session. I'll be putting across some questions which we feel is very relevant and would be helpful for all to understand the entire scenario. Thanks, Nikhil, and to begin with, and to set the tone for the discussion, how do you see the relevance of geospatial technology in today's context?
Good morning, Manish, and good morning, everybody who have joined the line. I definitely see it as a privilege, and I will I try to see using my experience. I should be able to share some meaningful, and you get some meaningful insight when it comes to the career opportunities. So, coming back to your question, the relevance of geospatial technology. Now, the relevance is immense. Actually, I don't know what kind of participants are there, but getting a sense that it's a kind of a mix of, IT professionals, GIS professionals, some of the fresh guys. I will definitely like to throw light on what are the things, not the definition of geospatial, but what are the things that the geospatial impact. Our world has many challenges. There remains many unexplored dimensions to this, and also many geographic problems to solve. The problems about human population, understanding of environment, the climate change, the role of biodiversity, shifts in urbanization, massive amount of people migrating to cities, and then making cities more livable, resilient, and smart. We hear the concept of smart city these days a lot. And alleviating poverty and hunger to ensure sustainable development. The problem of pollution that we are grappling today, and we are seeing that in city, those who are in the NCR definitely would be able to relate with that far more, and the dimension of the relationship between our environment and human health. So we clearly need better understanding of these geographical problems. We call it geographical problems because all of this problem has a very good relationship with geography, and thereby engaging with all concerned stakeholders. Geospatial solution helps us do that. So in the sense of relevance, in order to be able to discern the various hidden geographical problem which has far-fetching impact, is something which puts the relevance on geospatial technology. And no other technology would be able to do that in terms of discovering, identifying, and then managing those problems better than that with a set of geospatial tools.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. And how do you see its emergence in India?
This correctly, we would have to start with a geospatial perspective, which is global in nature, followed by the way its adoption has evolved in India. So let me take a few minutes in kind of telling how has it evolved globally, and then I will bring that up briefly into the Indian context. So here there is a very favorite line that I always lean on, which is kind of user and usability paradigm. Now, try to understand what I'm trying to say here. As far as use and users are concerned, a few decades back, about 4 decades back, when it began its use in research labs. So there are fundamental two things that I'm trying to tell you here. Who are the users and where were those used? Research labs for about 100 scientists on generally old machines providing desktop features. Then it grew to an expansive set of close to about 1,000 of GIS professionals using high-end workstations. Then it actually progressed to enterprises and governments, which started deploying this technology involving millions of users. And then it took a societal jump, which became a collaborative engagement platform with multiple stakeholders on whether web or cloud, thereby impacting billions of people. So that's the global perspective of the evolution of geospatial technology. Now the story is very similar in India, except for the fact that probably would have started about a decade later, and the early adoption were, if I recall correctly, limited to some large national Department of Space and Department of Science and Technology programs. And with regards to its usability, the early adoption was heavily loaded towards data creation, followed by its usage in decision support system. Now I see its pervasive use in policy formulation, monitoring, and management. So that's how I see its emergence.
Very interesting. And how do you see the industry doing in short, medium, and long term, say 5, 10, 15 years, particularly in India?
Well, good question. That's something which we are grappling and deliberating over most of our time, Manish, you and I. Well, I must start with saying that if it's not already hit the inflection point, it's just about to happen. Things are auguring extremely well for geospatial science and arts, I will put it this way. As we speak, we see many forces converging. This is a very dynamic scenario that we are in today. Computing, for example, it continues to evolve, and following the Moore's law, you see faster machine, faster network, the internet, and now this explosion of mobile devices. If you go to the measurement side, it's again increasing, more real time, more sensor networks, and now we have another dimension of this data that we all now know is the crowdsourcing from people and citizens coming together. The GIS software also is evolving a lot. You know, it is becoming far more sophisticated, dealing with temporal, dealing with full 3D, and becoming much more usable. At the same time, it's co-evolving with geographic science, the understanding of relationship and patterns and the processes, and those extending into networks. And coincidentally, though this is a debatable topic, and the degree of freedom that I'm going to be talking about is a question of big debate, but our governments are also beginning to open up. Now we are now beginning to deliberate, at least, if not decide, on open data policies. And once that happens, we would undoubtedly provide the underpinning for this information to come together, creating a kind of collective geospatial understanding, and then opening the world not to the geospatial professionals, but almost in every paradigm of the world, to say so. Now, the question for us in India now is whether are we ready for this notion that we could move from all that we have been doing for last about 25, 30 years into shaping it up in a national portal of geospatial information or system, and then leveraging our collective geospatial investment and knowledge. Now, that will make this in, and I'm a very positive person. With my optimism, this happened very short. And just to validate further, a few months back were conducted by Feedback Consulting, which 2014 to be about 5,000 crore, less than $1 billion. But the way moving, the adoption is a defensive prediction, let me tell you, very conservative, 24,000, almost 4 to 5 times by 2019. So in 3 to 4 years, they are talking about 4 times the market size than what we saw last year. So that's my answer to your short to medium term, the way the geospatial technology is going in India.
I think that's an excellent description which you have given. It defines the entire ecosystem, how it is evolving and where it is leading to in short and medium term. Going forward, what are the various components of geospatial markets and how are they consumed in India?
Now, some of the data that I have seen, and based on my experience, I can actually put it into the 4 different buckets, and these are not essentially, the hardcore buckets, but I have tried to kind of, in order to bring in simplicity in the whole understanding, categorize that in 4 different parts. One is maps and data. So when I say maps and data, it's both maps and data products and services. So the data products, which could be vector maps, satellite images, aerial photography, and the services side, it could be surveying, data acquisition, digitization, map automation, digital image processing, photogrammetry, etc. Now this constitutes about 50 to 60% of the whole thing. And the report that I just mentioned actually also are very close to our estimate, is about 52%. So that's a big component. That's the biggest component of all. The second part, and Manish, for your reference and maybe for the information of all the participants, here I'm not talking about the software export. I'm only talking about the demand side for the domestic usage and the supply side, which is the supplier information catering to the domestic needs. Okay? So that's about 52% is what the report says. The second big piece is professional services, including application development. And again, catering to the domestic demand, which could be mobile, web development, customization, software development, QA/QC, testing, tools and application, creating decision support system, system architecturing, system integration, and so on and so forth, implementation services. That is about 18%. Comes the data acquisition and hardware, which is GPS, GNSS receivers, total stations, mobile mapping, could be terrestrial, aerial, aircraft-based system surveying. Now, this constitutes about 15%. And the software platform, which is about GIS platform, image processing, photogrammetry, which actually becomes the means of processing data and creating set of geospatial information layers, that's about 15%. So the major portion goes into creation of data. As I said, the initial year of our evolution in India saw maybe 80 to 90%. Now it has come down to about 50-55%. And the great growth indicator is the reduction of, and the revenue is still growing, but with a far more magnitude towards applications and implementations. Now, how are they consumed? They are consumed across sectors, such as telecom, power, land records, utility, defense, national mapping organizations, urban development, roads and highways, engineering and research organizations, health, mines and geology, and the list goes on, transportation, logistics, water resources. Disaster management is one of the key sectors. Law enforcement, we see a lot of Government of India criminal and crime control network systems using GIS. So that's the kind of spread we have in terms of the geospatial component and its uses and the way it is consumed.
Great. My question, I think we have a full participants, and we want to know, how do you see geospatial as a career revenue for aspiring professionals, and what are the career paths for them?
So this is a very key part of this discussion today, and I will spend a little more time than I did with other questions because this is key. Once we understand that, maybe it will be simpler. Some of the answers will get reduced. So some of the questions will get reduced, and the clarification required will be little less. So try to understand that this is very important piece when it comes to geospatial career. And when you are saying career avenues for fresh, this is what the question was, for fresh aspiring professionals. That's what you said.
Yes.
Okay. So, when I say fresh aspiring professionals, basically I am keeping the whole pot open. So it could be, there was a general perception that the industry is still very niche and best catered for cartographers, surveyors, geologists, geographers, remote sensing professionals. But why I'm saying this pot is absolutely empty right now, because I'm not creating any bias in any particular, in favor of any particular background. The reason is that it offers now equal opportunities for those we just talked about versus the fresh IT engineers and the general management graduates. And that's why I'm saying that this is very important to understand the different paradigm, the various patterns of geospatial usage. So the first part is data management. So I assume that there are a lot of students here in this webinar, and that a lot of fresh guys. This question comes from the aspirant who will be fresh. They need to understand what goes inside a GIS program or a project, and why many people are not able to discern versus different pieces or components residing inside a GIS program. So this is an opportunity to understand, and this is purely based on my experience. So the first component, as I said in my component analysis, is data management. So what is data management? So the geospatial provides the ability to organize, fuse, and manage data from various disparate sources into one common reference called location. Now, in order to manage data effectively, it is important that we consider geography from the start. Now, understanding what one wants in their planning and analysis provides for what data needs to be collected, how that needs to be collected, whether it is GNSS, total stations, scanner, LiDAR, terrestrial, aerial that I spoke about, or integrated survey, or a combination of these. So first, what data needs to be collected, how that needs to be collected, using which technology or a combination of this technology. In the manner in which this collected data is going to be stored, managed, and shared, the concept of spatial database engine, RDBMS, OGC, which is WMS, WFS, etc., clearinghouse, GIS portal. Now, this itself opens up wide avenues for aspirants wanting to make a career in surveying, data acquisition, and spatial database planning and management. So this is one paradigm. Okay. So just I am trying to bring this avenues coming in the various paradigms program, so that you get a very good insight. Okay, what avenues are, and these avenues are related in which component of GIS usage within a program. Okay, does it make sense, Mani?
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Now the second paradigm of geospatial usage in a geospatial program is planning and analysis. Again, very important part. Today, geospatial is way beyond placing dots on maps. Many people that you see who are not from the geospatial side and doesn't have the kind of exposure that many of us have the opportunity to have, feel that all that GIS does is kind of putting dots on maps. No, this is not true. In fact, it is providing the capabilities for supporting the ability to analyze those dots through set of functions, through set of dynamic map, through set of apps, and the set of tools, thereby creating actionable information, facilitating different kinds of modeling, pattern recognition, trend analysis, change detection, and also the information exchange and integration. Now, this opens up avenues for planner and analyst. So while in the data management category, we spoke about how it opens up opportunities for survey acquisition experts and spatial database planner and managers or management analysts. This opens up avenues for spatial planning and analysis. The third component is field to office automation. Now, geospatial is becoming truly ubiquitous. There were days when people would write software programs which were very native, written in native language, and just open up, rip it apart, and then try to dissect something else. Extremely difficult. Now, it actually evolved to an extent that it became very open, interoperable, integratable, interconnected. Later on, it became all web APIs, the REST APIs, which could be consumed anywhere. It has further been opened up by even the big OEMs, device makers, device manufacturers, who would keep it very close to their heart. And now they are talking about the new notion of BYOD, bring your own devices. Now, the openness, the beauty lies in this openness of this expansive or pervasive nature of data sharing, which is not only allowing their software to talk to one another, even they are asking about complete agnostic hardware. Now, this is the real field to office automation opportunity. And the key paradigm here is the ability to share the spatial information to and from the field where it matters the most. This opens up avenues for automation, development of apps which are discoverable, accessible, and open. So that's the third piece in the avenue side. The fourth piece is workflow and work order management. Every industry has its own specific set of workflows, whether it is utility, oil and gas, natural resources. One has to understand the nuances of these workflows. And then only you will be able to deliver the right solutions, a specific set of workflows. Now, integration of horizontal set of geospatial capabilities, which I just spoke about, whether it is data management, planning and analysis, automation, with these workflow underpins and creates huge opportunity and avenues. So here I'm talking about kind of aligning, the understanding of specific domain workflows with the horizontal set of geospatial capabilities. And the last, which is very new, which just has come up in the last few years, is the collaborative engagement. What is that? Now, this facilitates effect among various stakeholders who could be owning disparate sources of information related to their specific task, jurisdiction, or responsibilities, requiring, collaborative engagement in some cases on a real-time basis, and thereby preparing, responding, and recovering from major events. Say what just happened in Pathankot. Different stakeholders will be involved: intelligence, law enforcement, security forces, government decision makers. So this open up avenues for crisis management, strategic planning, and decision making. tools are going to be quite open, which is REST APIs. We are writing a lot of programs which are for web or consumption by mobile devices, and they are cloud platform. So the barriers that were there for the IT people to get into GIS is diminished or lowered substantially. While it allows people from the IT industry to come to expertise in the geospatial side, also allows people to go from this side to another. So that's the one side. The second big role that I see is for system architects. Now, candidates which are conversant with the nuances of spatial system, as well as the relationship between spatial and non-spatial system, they are going to be very handy for this kind of a role. So, you know, what are the spatial and non-spatial systems? So GIS is now getting integrated with EAM, with CRM, with ERP, with business intelligence, content management, CMS. Now, a system architect who has understanding of one of the business systems would be able to discern the nuances related to the interconnection, interoperability, or integrability. And he would be the right fit for this role. This is a massive opportunity, let me tell you. There is a huge gap for people with this set of expertise. And since GIS is going to play the central role in connecting with different business systems, people who has understanding of any of the IT business system is going to play a great role in the system architecture opportunity. The third is very big, sales and business development. And this is open for both science and management grads. And I have seen with my experience, a lot of guys that we recruited hired fresh, and we had some anticipation with whether this is such a niche sector they would be able to kind of adapt well and in time or not, and they did fairly fantastically well. So for the sales and business development, huge opportunity. And then comes pre-sales, and that doesn't require any background to be fair. People with some experience of selling or doing business development activity for other IT systems, or even some of the guys that I've seen coming from automation, somebody which came from automobile industry and did very, very well. So simply good expertise in sales and business development, or for the freshers who just aspire to create a career in sales and business development, engineering or management grads, this is a fantastic field. Now, pre-sales and technical support. This again for science, engineering, and management grads. But for people who have undergone some level of formal exposure or training as part of their curriculum at graduate or postgraduate levels in their schools, who understands geospatial and their content to some extent, both fresh and people who have kind of spent some time, this is a fantastic opportunity to providing support. And these are not just the product support anymore. This is the usage support, implementation support. So the nuances are far more complex than it was, say, 5 or 10 years back, where you are to just go and provide simple product support. I see this as a big, big field. Allowing people to use software effectively and leverage its capability for their workflow is enormous avenue for pre-sales and technical support aspirants. So
great.
These are the sales and business development, pre-sales, software development, testing, and system architecture.
Nikhil, just on what you mentioned, the opportunity for science, engineering, and management graduates in business development, there is a question which has come from one of the participants, and he wants to know, like, how come or what are the opportunities? Like, how will a person who has a science background or an engineering background, fare in this sales and business development? I think he has some confusion, like, because when he is pursuing science or engineering, it is generally assumed that he will be having a technical career. But do you think there is, because you mentioned like there is a role in business development, so I think there is some clarification if you can like have on this. Nikhil? Oh, we'll just continue. I think Nikhil has gone offline for a minute. So that was a very interesting like perspective which Nikhil has shared on various career opportunities, like the options which we have. It's wide ranging, and I cannot agree more than what he has said. The opportunities is like it's horizontally coming up across various segments, across various verticals, and it's not just limited to any one particular segment, say natural resource management or infrastructure or say agriculture. It is now coming up across in various segments, and not just as an enabler for decision making in the particular department. It is now playing a more important role, more key role in the entire, say, information flow or the decision making of an organization. I think now it's like when we talk about the integration, this geospatial like this domain has become an integral part of the entire or system in many of the departments. But it will be interesting questions, like as was shared by a couple of people during this discussion. So while Nikhil joins back, maybe we can have those questions, and we'll be very happy to take them up. Personally, like if I have to share, like I'm aware of like people who from very diverse background. Like it's not that they had a qualification precisely in geospatial or GIS and remote sensing or masters in remote sensing. They came from civil engineering background. They came from mechanical, electrical, com science background, and they have been able to do pretty good in this domain. And like as Nikhil was pointing out, the opportunities and it is coming up for various segment people. So Nikhil, if you're back.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, great. Going forward, like as we hear that technology today cuts across various sectors and verticals, how important role that the domain expertise play today?
Well, as I spoke about every different sectors, and geospatial today cuts across various sectors. Every sector has its own set of workflows and work order. Now, let's take an example for, say, utility and say water or electric. Let's take water utility. So a domain guy would be having a good understanding of the whole workflow, the network, the hydrant information, the sources of that, where are the walls, what are the properties of vaults, where are the meters situated, what could be the possible reason for leakage if there is one, when are the meters going to be changed, for wastewater, where are the manholes. So different utility assets and their network protocol. Now when somebody is trying to use geospatial in terms of the asset management, planning analysis, field and office automation that I spoke about, now it's very important that you also understand the related workflows. It just simply helps. Earlier what used to happen, there were two different set of people. One is the geospatial guy who didn't have any understanding of the domain that he's working or providing information to, and people who are in domain and didn't have much of understanding of the geospatial sector. I see that 15 years back, supposing in a banking sector, you'd go to a bank, you'd find people would be very hesitant in using the simple IT technology for their banking operation. And they would rather lean on somebody who can provide that information because they knew that the information had a lot of depth and a lot of richness. Similar is the case today. But what I'm saying is this boundary between geospatial expertise, which is horizontal set of expertise, and the vertical expertise, which is domain set of expertise, is kind of, finishing. It's going away, diminishing. And people who are trying to use this different technology for their effectiveness and efficiency within their workflows are leaning on towards all set of technology that's going to help. And in that sense, it actually keeps them in real good state and the cutting edge to acquire knowledge of geospatial, which is a horizontal set of expertise, and use that with their specific domain. And from that sense, I see, supposing let's take big programs that we see from Government of India and just take one smart city. Now, a smart city will have different nuances. It's all about how, or in an optimized way, we are using the resources that are available to us. So how do utilities, for instance, as an example, be able to leverage all and the best way possible by optimizing resources and assets? And use of, if there is a combination of domain expertise with the right set of geospatial expertise, that will come up very handy. And such people would play a very, very important role going forward whenever we talk about this, resource optimization and effective management of our resources.
Interesting. And what roles that you see over leveraged, and which are the least leveraged? And is the skill gap versus need the reason for this? How would system compensate for that?
I see a very intrinsic set of transformation that the system allows, and this comes from need rather than by somebody pushing it up. And this is a very, very good question, I would say. In fact, it took some 30 seconds to understand your question, and what the way I understand it, what you are trying to say is there are certain roles which we see on a regular basis. Now, are these roles have some skill versus gap? Now, the question is that if we go back 10 years or 15 years, what were the roles that were there in geospatial industry? Again, we have the 3 or 4 roles that I spoke about. We had sales and business development. We have software development and application development. We had technical support, and we have technical architects. Now, how have that changed over the years? One is that we had the sales guys who were selling content, products, software products, hardware products. So they were just box pushers. Now we see there a lot of emphasis still going on that box pushing nature of sales and business development. And in that sense, definitely it is over leveraged. And in that's also one of the reasons we are not doing the right justice of what geospatial industry is doing today. When we are talking about this whole notion of discovering, creating, managing, visualizing, analyzing, and collaboration, we are talking about disparate sources of information getting ingested at one level. So just one set of product, an understanding of one set of products might not be able to just do justice with the sales and business development career of geospatial industry today. The demand requires people to be more solution centric. The demand requires, like I used to see, if we have say 7 floors in a particular enterprise, people will go and just speak to either the GIS manager or the IT manager. What I said in my planning and analysis and collaborative engagement discussion, that different functions, the business functions of an organization, are collaborating and using rich set of geospatial information. So your customer or your end user is not limited to that horizontal set of geospatial service provider or solution provider. It has expanded to business, to finance, to logistics, and thereby a large account management skill is very, very important. So while the general product sales is over leveraged, the least leverage is key account management, large account management, solution sales and business development, who could actually evangelize, do consultative selling, counseling as to how the return of investment will come by implementation of this geospatial services. That will do 2 things. One is that will do good to the individual, that will do good to the organization that he's employed at, and that will do enormous amount of good to the industry. That's one part. The second part is the technical support. So as I said, it's over leverage is product usage. Least leverage is, the manner in which it should be used in the domain that it's going to be used. So the application uses. That's something I'm talking about. The third paradigm is the technical architects. So far they were only talking about, okay, this is server level implementation. It's going to connect with these desktops, and it is going to fetch data from the RDBMS, which is going to be stored through spatial database engine. That's all. Now, we are not talking about integration point limited to the geospatial system. We are talking about the interconnection or interoperability part or interconfiguration part extended to other IT business systems. As I said, maybe SAP, ERP, CRM, all that. Business intelligence is a big piece here. With all that integration sets, the least leverage is such skill sets, such roles, which extends from the spatial business system to the other IT business system.
Okay. Before I go with my question, I have a question for one of the participants who wants to know what is the scope of people coming from small firms to work with big companies like Trimble, Hexagon, ESRI?
Manish? Yeah. So I didn't understand your question. Can you again say that?
Actually, the question reads: how is the scope of small firms coming up? Chances of working with big companies like Trimble, Hexagon, ESRI as channel partners, service providers, etc.
Okay, so it's a very good question. It's very good questions. People working in smaller companies, and I assume the question is that if they are working on the geospatial domain and they want to go on and work for larger enterprises, whether the opportunity lies. Have I understood it correctly? Right. So, this is very important question. So the notion of what I just said, that the horizontal set of expertise and the vertical set of expertise. Now, the vertical set of expertise is better utilized and used in specific domains. So people who have programming skills, geospatial programming skills, people who have data management skills, people who have system architect skills, they can go into those industry, end-use industry, and make use of their skills and expertise. Similarly, there is a horizontal set of expertise, which could be one of these. And every large organization these days, as I said, all the big and large programs have a core component of geospatial. So you talk about Wipro, you talk about SCL, you talk about TCS, Infosys. Not for one, for multiple big, large, multi-year projects, they have been using geospatial and integrating their other sets of content or applications or services with geospatial. And they all have their GIS practices. They all have. So people who with horizontal set of skills or vertical sets of skills. Why I'm saying this? So they work for natural resources, they work for utility, they work for oil and gas. So they require both horizontal sets of expertise and vertical sets of expertise. So these people, if they aspire to go into large enterprises and they have expertise in either of these horizontal or vertical set of expertise, are going to find avenues there in large enterprises. The only thing that I'm trying to tell you here is that whatever set of expertise that you have, you must have very relevant and cutting edge expertise. So if you're working on ArcGIS or you are working for GNSS data capture, you must be working on the latest technology. You must at least have the know-how of what's going around so that you get relevance with all the large enterprises as well. So yes, to answer your question in a simple way, they definitely have avenues because all these big organizations have their own GIS practices, And in more often than not, in all the large cases, domestic or international, they are integrating with GIS components.
Great. I think so that answers the question. Going forward, like when is the industry going to be mainstream so that the free-flowing cross-transition of roles and opening from other industries, say IT, could be expected? And what is that? What is the gap today?
Now, I just, in a way, I answered that question just before this. So again, going back to this horizontal and, vertical set of expertise. So people, the way I'm seeing is all the geospatial program require huge amount of open and agnostic IT set of capabilities. Similarly, all the IT companies that I spoke about, these are the large IT organizations in the country, the Wipros, the SCLs, the TCSs, and Infosys. These are the large IT organizations who are creating their geospatial practice. So this barrier, this line is kind of diminishing now. And therefore, people having horizontal or vertical set of expertise for geospatial might find opportunity in large IT companies, while the IT companies might find huge amount of avenues in the geospatial sector, because this whole boundary is blurring, because everything is becoming mainstream. The only caution I must tell you, Manish, is that as this is going mainstream, the geospatial industry is going mainstream, it's kind of native versus alien story. So all the natives who always kind of clung upon geospatial, thinking that, well, this is their niche, it's their boundary, it's their jurisdiction, and I will not allow any alien to come in, that's not going to happen. And they have to be always on their toes to kind of embrace the new IT paradigms in order to remain relevant, because it's already becoming a mainstream. It has become mainstream. From the software development perspective, I see, whether I go to Redlands or I go to other software development places worldwide, Denver and rest of the places in Sunnyvale, I see large hiring is happening of IT professionals for the software development programs or the project management. And therefore, people who are from the geospatial sector should always try to acquire skills from the IT side so that they remain relevant. So yes, to answer your question, it has already become a mainstream. It has become mainstream to the extent that all the big mainstream IT companies, as I said in my last answer, have already got practices. So it's just like you talk about different disciplines of IT. GIS has become one of the subsystems of that.
Great. One last question, Nikhil. There's a fear of sustenance, especially after APDRP experience. Have things changed, and how?
Now, sustenance, are you talking from the career perspective?
To an extent, yes. Like,
well,
definitely APDRP opened a lot of opportunities.
I'm able to relate to this question now. So so what you are saying, there was a hump in around last couple of years back when there was huge requirement of roles in geospatial sector. People would be wanting to engage them for different projects that they got at the national level. I don't see that challenge anymore. The reason was I see APDRP as a kind of proof of concept. There was very few large national level programs which was so pervasive in nature, touching upon the real consumer by the use of geospatial technology and the business groups in the manner in which the APDRP project did. And since it was the first project of its kind and more one time, it just went on to the curve and then later on could not sustain because there was nothing which could connect it for the long term. There were 2-3 reasons for that. One of the reasons is the effective utilization and effective implementation of the project. Had the project been effectively implemented, the sustenance issue would not have come up. And second, had there been multiple projects at that point in time of the same magnitude and nature, again the sustenance problem would not have come up. Now what we are seeing geospatial, large opportunity. So it is coming in the name of, as I said, smart city, big program, government of India programs, initially going for 100. In maybe a couple of days' time, you hear that city challenge thing, how many cities have been qualified for that. And later on, you also hear that it's going to be extended to many more cities, not 98 and 100 cities. The second big city, and let me share, this is very interesting here. Whoever I spoke to from the city side, who are kind of competing in this city challenge in order to get this 500 crore from Government of India as initial seed money, they are laying a lot of emphasis on geospatial. The core to and the central theme to their smart city planning is geospatial. The second big thing that I'm seeing is from this road and transportation. The Road and Transportation Ministry has already undertaken the task of extending from whatever they were doing 7 or 8 kilometers to say about 17 to 30 kilometers per day road construction. It's big, large programs. The third is inland waterways. So they are trying to create parallel transportation system, at least to kind of reduce the burden on our road by going the inland waterway and creating inland waterways. So the way we have national highways, we already have 4 or 5 national waterways, but we'll have far many. We see a lot of, Clean India, Swachh Bharat, Namami Gange, all these projects, Digital India, National GIS, all projects are happening now and they are coinciding together. So what they are doing is they are not kind of, something as a disruptive one time and then not able to cope up and sustain. They're all interconnected, and in the manner in which they're interconnected, they are going to create, a cascading effect, and only enhance the career opportunities for GIS professionals and also the GIS technology users in the country. So I personally see this expanding big time, and that I said initially that if even the consulting organizations feel that this is going to grow by 4 and 5 times, it will require 4 and 5 times, uptake of GIS professionals.
Great. I think, thanks, Nikhil. I think that was very wonderful. And thanks for taking a couple of more questions beyond the stipulated time. We thought we'll wrap it up in 45 minutes. But thanks for extending it by about 15 more minutes. And I would like to thank all the participants of the webinar and the speaker. We will be having the recording of this webinar placed on our webinar archive for reference and viewing at a later date. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll keep you posted on our further activities on our web portal. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Nikhil.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.